Hi friends, Christina here. If you've been following along with me, especially in my Facebook group this season, you probably know that the trending topic has been my lighted tin ornaments that the Cricut and Silhouette users are making. So of course I had to make a laser version, and I think these turned out gorgeous. So there's a light. We are doing this with our laser. We've got the fairy lights. I'll talk about these in a second. We're using the live hinge frame, and I think that this is just a super high-end looking ornament, and I'm really excited to make a bunch of these for my painted shop. So let's dive in and I'll show you how these go together. Make sure you watch the video before you decide if you want to make them, because I am going to be honest, these are a lot of layers and there's kind of a lot that goes into them, but I'm going to give you a step-by-step tutorial right here. Okay, first let's talk about the materials needed to make these snowflake ornaments. So the showstopper for this one is the fairy lights. You obviously need the light to make it light up. These are different fairy lights than the ones that I've used in my tin ornaments and other projects that I've done with fairy lights. I chose these because they take a AAA battery. And so they're really easy to swap out. Lots of people have AAA batteries laying around and they don't have to look for something special. So that's one reason I got these. The other reason is because these have a built-in timer function. So you don't have to switch out the batteries as often. So on these, the timer, it's a 6 hours on, 18 hours off built-in timer. So that's why I chose these. Now you can use whatever fairy light you like. The file is going to come with a cutout that is for these specific lights, but you could always just delete out this piece and modify it to work with the actual fairy lights that you get if you wanted to get something else, because I will go ahead and warn you, these are a little more expensive than the other ones that just use the disc batteries. So that's one thing to keep in mind. The next thing that I want to talk to you about are the spacer layers. So these spacer layers, you need several, 7 to be exact. You have 7 spacer layers. So I know that that's a lot. You do not want to use your best material on these. This is it's an 1/8" sanded plywood that I get from Home Depot. Here, I've got a sheet. So if you can see what it looks like. Now it says it's 1/8 inch, so it's actually a little thinner than 1/8 inch. At my Home Depot, a whole 4-foot by 8-foot sheet of it is about $18.98, I think is the price. So you can cut tons of these layers for super cheap. Don't use your super expensive, super nice walnut for these. This ornament will cost a fortune if you're going to use your nicest material for the spacers, because you will not even see these at all in the finished product. So I have these with 3M on both sides. So that's the other thing, is you want 3M tape. You could glue these, but I just think 3M is a lot easier to use. So that's the wood that you want for the spacers. Now I'm using my nice wood only for the back, the very top layer, and the frame. So this is the wood that you're going to see. So that's where you want to bust out your nice stuff. This one is sapele. So as you can see, it just gives it a really nice clean look. This one is white oak, I think, for here. I think this is hickory. Kind of mixed it up a little bit on that. But yeah, I'm not saying use cheap stuff for all of it. Only use cheap stuff for the spacer layers, and then use your nice stuff for the back, the frame, and the front piece. You could even get away with using cheap stuff for the back if you don't care what the back looks like. Probably wouldn't make that big of a difference. Next, for the actual snowflake part, you're going to want to find something thin and transparent. So if you're going to use your laser for all of this, for the snowflakes, I recommend using the white flecks from Smoky Hill and the frosted flecks. So the frosted flecks is actually clear flecks with a frosted transparent kind of glaze on it. And then the white flecks is it's an opaque kind of plasticky material. But you can also have a lot of fun with this and look for other materials that you can cut on your Cricut if you still have a Cricut laying around. This is some, I don't even know, it was with the cardstock. I don't know if I would call it paper, but it's kind of a transparent sheet that I got from Hobby Lobby. I just liked the white kind of snowy-ish pattern on it. I also got some glittery, this is vinyl that I picked up from Hobby Lobby. So what I did with this one is I took a circle of the glittery vinyl and I just put it on top of this. So this is actually what I used for half of my layers because I alternate, which I'll tell you. This is a Mylar stencil film. It's the 7.5 mil that I just ordered off Amazon. I think 12 sheets of this was around $9. But this, I don't think you can cut it on a laser. I cut this on my Cricut. So just be aware of the materials that you choose on whether or not they're laser safe. Like I said, if you're using the flex from Smoky Hill, you can cut all of that on your laser, but I just thought it was kind of fun to play with the different materials. Like I said, this is vinyl. This is not laser safe. So I'll show you, I used the stencil, the Mylar stencil, and I cut the same circle in vinyl, and so now I have this sparkly piece for the back. So it's just kind of fun to play with different materials for these. So, you know, maybe you know of something else that I haven't found. I just kind of started browsing Hobby Lobby looking for things that looked transparent and cuttable on my Cricut. So it was kind of fun to find different things that I thought would work. I think this one has kind of a lacy pattern in the background. So what I did on these is I'm alternating. You want the transparent layer, the solid transparent layer is going to be in the back, and then I alternated between the opaque white flecks and the more transparent pieces. And it's really going to help let the light shine through beautifully. Because, like I said, if you used all white flecks for this, it would still shine through, but it's just not going to be as vibrant. It still will give you a nice soft glow. So you could definitely use all flecks, all white flecks. But try the frosted flecks as well and mix it up and just see what combinations you can come up with. All right, let's get to putting it together. All right, now let's see how these go together. First, you're going to start off putting the fairy light in. So this is the very back layer. You can see there's a cutout here and there's a little slit in it, which is where the wire is going to go. So you're going to take your fairy light and you're going to just make sure you thread that wire through there, and you're just going to push it in. So I have this little tight because I want this to be able to go in without using glue. There's a notch here, so it's not going to push all the way through. It's going to stop right there, so you don't have to worry about it going all the way through. But it should be pretty snug. So once you have your fairy light in, you're going to take one of these layers. These are the ones with the hanger. So keep an eye on the ones that have the hanger. We're going to take the 3M off. And we're going to thread the fairy light through. And then we're going to line this up. So you line it up and press it down. Okay, now we need to unravel our fairy lights. Okay, that took a minute to unravel the fairy lights. Sometimes they get tangled. Once you have your fairy lights untangled, then you're going to take this wonky looking layer here. So this, you can see it's got the slits with the larger holes in it. Now I have 3M on both sides of this just because this is the material, this is your cheap material that I just cut all of the spacer layers out of. So I recommend taking the 3M off before you thread your lights, because otherwise it's just a pain to get off. So you're just going to have to deal with it being a little sticky. So this is the layer that you're going to wrap your lights around. So we have this concoction here. We've got the fairy light, the back layer, and the first spacer layer. We've got our lights threaded through. Now, I like to actually turn the lights on for this so that I can see where I'm spacing the lights out. So you're just going to wrap your lights around these slits. See, they kind of fit into these notches. And you're just going to wrap your whole strand of lights around. So you just kind of want to go in a random order because you want the lights to be evenly distributed. I feel if you just try to go around them like up to down, and then the lights kind of clump all together. So it's not really going to matter the design that the wire's making, because you're not going to see that. You're just kind of concentrating more on where exactly your lights are going. So see, I want one down here, so you kind of got to strategically figure out how to wrap it. Oh, okay, almost had it. Let's go here. There we go. Now we got a light down there. So you're just going to continue wrapping, and you're going to use up the whole strand of lights. Oh, make sure you get the wires in the notches. See, sometimes it kind of jumps out, but you really want the wires in the notches. It's okay if they're kind of loose. You're not going to see this. You're just wrapping your lights around, stringing the lights. I want to say these are maybe 10-foot lights, so there's quite a bit to wrap. And it's okay if you have them kind of in the same hole over here. You're really not going to see that there's multiple wires in the same hole. Sometimes there's a hole that just gets more than the others. I don't want that there. All right. At the end of my lights, so I'm just going to tuck this back here. And we want to take off this piece of 3M. If I can grab it, there we go. Okay, and then you're just going to line up your hangers, and you're just going to press this down. So the reason the holes are here is so your wire comes inward, and you can still press this down flush onto your wood. See, there's a piece of wire that escaped. Okay, so this looks pretty good. So that's where your lights are going to come. Okay, now you need to find your last spacer layer that has the hanger on it. So I've got this here. So you should have 2 spacer layers like this with the hanger. You should have 1 spacer layer that you wrap the lights on that has the hanger, and then your very back layer has a hanger. So you technically have 4 layers that have a hanger on it. So let's take our 3M off. stuck to me. Okay. And let's line that right up with our hanger hole. And press that down. All right, so that is how you set up your lights. All right, now it's time to add the snowflake. So these are my snowflake layers that I have cut already. Like I said, this is the one that is the stencil film that I added the sparkly vinyl to just for a little extra sparkle. You could just use the plain stencil film. You could use your flex. You can really kind of play with the different effects that you're gonna get on this. But I like the sparkles, so that's what I'm doing. So your next layer is going to be the solid circle. No cuts on this one, it's just a circle. So there was 3M on that, so I can just press this down, line it up. And I'm going to turn my lights off. So fun thing about these lights is they have all kinds of modes. So you have to press the button several times to get it to turn off. There we go. Now it's off. All right. Now you're going to take a circle spacer layer. This is just a circle. There's no hanger on it. It's got 3M on both sides. You're definitely going to want 3M on both sides for this. It just takes so much less time than gluing. So we're adding our space. Now the next layer, I'm going to do another layer of the Mylar. This is the Mylar, or you could use the Frosted Flex. And so these are, it doesn't really matter which way's up. I like to make sure I have either a point here facing up or one of these little diamonds facing up. I don't really like having it crooked, but it doesn't matter like if you have it flipped or whatever. There's no really top or bottom on these. But I'm going to line it up like that. And then we need another spacer layer. Okay. Now we need our third layer. I do have numbers on these. If you cut them with your laser, you can see that there will be a little number on them. So the way I cut this flex is I masked the back and then I cut this side because I get more char on my back. So rather than having to peel two sides, I have the masking on the back. So I have a nice white side and this doesn't have a lot of char on it. But yes, I do have these layers numbered so you know the order that these go. So I need to line up my diamonds. Just want to make sure you get it exactly lined up. Sometimes it catches on the tape, but you can usually adjust it. Okay, that looks good. And you guessed it, we need another spacer layer. This is why we're using the cheap stuff for the spacer layers, because you use a lot of them, but you will not see them at all in the finished product. So use the cheapest stuff you can find that still has at least some sort of structure. All right. Layer 2, going back to the Mylar on this. This was the white flex for this layer here. Layer 3, I used white flex. Layer 2, I'm back to the stencil film, the Mylar stencil film. Okay. And now we have our last spacer layer. Okay. And now we have the top layer of our snowflake, our last snowflake layer. And the top, I'm using white flecks for this top layer as well. Now, one thing I like to do is I like to cut the entire snowflake in white flecks and the entire snowflake in my frosted flecks or my mylar, and then I just alternate them. So let's see. So this one you can see my top layer is mylar, and then it alternates flex, mylar, flex. So you can, if you cut all of it in the mylar and all of it in the flex, then you can just swap them out every other layer and you get this nice effect. So now our snowflake's done. Now we just need to add our top to kind of frame it. I've got 3M on this piece. This is white oak. This is where you want to use your nicer stuff. And there you go. So our base ornament is done. Now we just need to frame it because, wow, this is really thick, right? And you can see the white, and so this just does not look good. So we need to frame it. So the way I frame these is I take a piece of 3M, I just cut these strips, and you're just going to line the outside of your ornament. And let's see. I need to get an X-Acto knife to cut that little piece off. I think I hid it from myself. Oh, there it is. Okay. So I just cut this here, cut that off. And then once I take the backing off, I'm going to use this extra little piece and put it right there. So you press your 3M firmly around the whole circumference of the ornament and then peel it off. If I can peel it, sometimes it's, all right, there we go. So now the whole outside is sticky. I've got this extra little piece I'm going to put up here. And then we can just kind of pull that off. You can fold that extra up there. Okay, now we have the frame. So let's look at the frame piece. This is the live hinge cut. So this is just 1/8 inch material. This is hickory, I believe. You can see there's a notch in it right here. This is where your hanger is going to go, and you're just going to wrap it around. So let's pick up our ornament, and then you're just going to kind of you're going to slide the frame into the notch, and you're just going to fold it down. And then it will meet in the middle. Press it in, and I kind of just give it a squeeze, and there it is. Let's see if it works. Look how pretty that is. All right, lovely. Now the last thing I do is I put a hanger on it. I'm just using ribbon here. I'll just show you really quick how I do these. I think I used a Stanley cup to tie my ribbon around. So you just take something that's about the size that you want your hanger. This is 5/8 inch ribbon, tie it around. I'm just tying a double knot because I'm not good with bows, but I think this is fine. So you have this with your double knot, and then you're going to go in. You're going to go in through the back. Just kind of fold up your ribbon and poke it through the back. If I can get it. And then bring your bow, or knot in my case, and just pull it. And sometimes you got to fiddle with it to get it in the right spot, but that's how we do it. All right. Okay, so that's all done. Now, one thing I do want to talk about with the live hinge frame, if you are using something other than the material that I have listed, like I list the Home Depot wood, if you are just using, say you're using true 1/8 inch, this notch is not going to be deep enough. So the way I have the file set up is I have this as its own separate rectangle. So what you would do is you would just ungroup this piece, and then you would select the square or the rectangle here and turn off the proportions, and you would just widen this. So if you need to widen it to say 1/2 inch, you would just widen this to as deep as you needed it. So this will fit in snug. That's the only other thing I wanted to mention. Anyways, have fun with these. I think they're beautiful. I think they look very high end. I'm probably going to start selling these at my painted tree tomorrow, and I'm excited to see what you all come up with. Thanks for watching.